Hi, everyone. Bob Dietrich here with another edition, an episode of the ADHD Toolbox. And today we're going to focus on the parents. And this is really an important topic that we're going to cover today. And we have one of the experts, in fact, the leader in the parent space for parents dealing with ADHD themselves or dealing with ADHD children. And that is Elaine Taylor-Klaus. And Elaine is the founder of something called Impact ADHD, which is a business that she owns. She's also an author, educator. I'm going to have her tell you a little bit about herself because she's got a very long bio and she's going to shorten it up for us so we can get into the juicy parts of her presentation. So, Elaine, welcome to the ADHD Toolbox.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thanks for including us.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you started working with ADHD.
Well, so the short version is that I'm a mom in an ADHD family of 5. And I didn't know that, of course. It was like dominoes, one kid, then the next kid, then the next kid. And then I finally kind of went, this can't just all be my husband. And I had myself evaluated at about 40.
Right.
So I have a really complex group of kids, now young adults, and I spent a lot of years, about a dozen years, struggling to try to support them and figure out how to help them. And there was a lot of resources out there for kids, and I found very little available to really help me and guide me in what I needed in sort of navigating these choppy waters. And the long story short is I became a coach to try to help other parents. I was actually on my way to graduate school, but I couldn't find a program that worked for my 3 kids. While I was home with 3 kids.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I discovered coaching, and I realized I discovered sort of a secret sauce. It was like my parenting changed. Ultimately, my husband's parenting changed, and I learned this style of communicating that was just magically effective and helpful in supporting my kids. And it wasn't rocket science. I realized it was something I could teach and I could share with other parents. And somewhere along that journey, I met my business partner now for almost a decade, Diane Dempster, who had a parallel experience. What was cool was that I was a mom with ADHD and she was a mom without ADHD, and it worked for both of us. Mm-hmm. So we knew we were really onto something. So we created something called Impact ADHD, which is an online resource, impactadhd.com, for parents of complex kids with ADHD, anxiety, learning disabilities, depression, and all of these other coexisting conditions that come along with ADHD. And so we publish a lot of original content and do a lot of free webinars and then started developing programs and training programs, and we do coaching and to support and guide parents through the waters so that they don't feel alone. Wow. And we do it all online and on the phone, so we can support and work with parents all over the world, which is pretty cool.
That's so necessary. I mean, a parenting resource where you could virtually get most of your questions answered. For parenting. So let's jump into that. Tell us about parenting. What are the big things that parents need to know in parenting an ADHD child, or maybe having ADHD themselves and trying to parent with that?
So, I really want to acknowledge that one of the questions I get from parents a lot is, how do I do this? I have ADHD myself, and right. I'm your poster child for, you can do this with ADHD yourself. And in fact, there's a lot to be said for consciously managing your own ADD, verbalizing it, and teaching your kid to do it by showing them that you're dealing with it yourself. Right. So there's a lot of value in that. And there's a lot of compassion you can feel for your kids and connection you can have when you have it yourself. And so I think there's so many places that we could go, but what's most important, I think, for parents to understand when we think about managing kids with ADHD is, well, 2 things. One is that we as parents are part of their treatment. So we're accustomed to treatment being, here's medication. And everybody knows there's medication for ADHD, and it can be very effective for some kids. But what many people don't know, and a lot of the professional providers don't even really understand, is that part of the recommended treatment for kids is parent training in behavior therapy. So behavior therapy training for parents or teachers is actually recommended for the kids, because what we have to do as adults is help these kids learn to manage themselves. So we want to create an environment at what's known as the point of performance, right? That's where the problems are happening. We need to help create an environment that supports them and teaches them and encourages them and enrolls them in self-management
You
and
mean
helps them find motivation.
an environment at home, like a
At
home?
home or in the classroom. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So if you put a kid in a therapist's office,
Mm-hmm.
they may have a great experience with that therapist because they're getting one-to-one attention and they've got focus and they've got all this, but that's not likely for ADHD specifically, that's not likely to change the outcome for them when they're at home and impulsively hitting their sister at the kitchen table, right?
Got it.
You have to do something in that moment around that environment where the problem is taking place. And that's number one, is that parents are actually part of treatment. And to leave out parents is to leave out half the solution.
Okay. So describe what, that might look like in the example you just gave, so parents get a feel for, what is parent, how do you include the parent in that treatment? So you got the brother sitting at the table and he punches the sister in
The
the arm,
sister,
and
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and so what would that look like?
So in my world,
Mm-hmm.
because I come from a coach approach, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that the modality, the philosophical background of the behavior therapy that we teach is coaching based. All right. So in my world, that would be, first of all, not starting with a solution. So your kid's hitting the kid, the first thought that a parent is going to have is, how do I fix this? How do I stop this? How do I fix this? And so they're going to separate the kids, or they're going to discipline the child, or right, we're going to go to the fix.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're dealing with ADHD, it's really essential to pull back and understand the problem you're really dealing with. So in my world, with the parents I work with, I would pull back and first, let's take aim. Let's get really clear, what's the change we want to see. So is it that we don't want him to hit the daughter, the sister, or is it that we want him to keep his hands to himself, or is this problem only happening in the mornings before medication or after school when they're tired? So I would narrow in the problem. That'd be the first thing I would do. And then the second, we talk about it in terms of curiosity. I'd collect some information. What's really going on? So this is a brain-based condition.
Mm-hmm.
So are they tired? Are they hungry? Are they impulsive? Are they looking for attention? Like, what's behind the behavior? Because it's really hard to change the behavior if you don't know what's causing it. And it could be that it's an impulse, and you're going to deal with that differently than if they're jealous of their little sister and they're trying to get attention from mom. The solutions will be different based
Right.
on your understanding of the problem.
Understood. And that makes total
Right.
sense. So going back to that scenario, you're at the dinner table, the brother punches the sister in the arm. Do you ask questions at that point? And what are the questions? Where do you go from there? Like,
So ideally, by the time you get to that environment, the parent's done some work, right? The parent's already understanding what's going on. They know what's behind the behavior. So based on their awareness and understanding, how they respond might be different. So
I see.
if they've already anticipated it and they've already had a conversation and they've already put some consequences in place,
Mm-hmm.
it may be a matter of, you follow through. Sweetie, I know that you're having a hard time keeping your hands to yourself, and remember, we talked about this, so this is what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You're staying compassionate and connected to your kid,
Mm-hmm.
and you're implementing a consequence. If you haven't had that plan yet, then you might approach it as a parent differently. What tends to happen is the parent goes, I've got to make this stop, right? So then it becomes about the parent, because my kids are hitting each other and that's not okay.
Right.
Right? And
Right.
that's
Right.
not actually helping your kid learn to navigate, learn to self-manage. So
Right.
this may be a kid who's hyperactive and needs to stand at the table instead of sitting at the chair,
Right.
right?
Right.
Like, what's the kid seeking in terms of stimulation will help you address the problem.
Got it. Got it. Okay. And of course, other strategies, maybe, don't have them sitting next to the sister. Maybe between the mom and
Could
dad
be,
might be a good
right?
idea. Or,
We definitely had places at the table in my house,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
But you don't want to start with those solutions because you really don't then know whether you're addressing the underlying problem. And
Good point.
we want to always be coming back to, how am I helping raise my kids' awareness to what's going on and
Hmm.
teach them to take ownership of their self-regulation,
Got it.
to whatever extent they're able to at that moment. And
Got
that
it.
doesn't mean that they should be able, at 10 to be able to do what 15-year-olds do, but a 10-year-old with ADHD should probably be able to do what an 8-year-old can do,
Got it.
right?
Got it.
So we want to
Yeah.
set our appropriate expectations.
Right. And we don't want to adjust our strategies to set them up to avoid situations. We want them to
Exactly. We
learn
want
those
them to learn to
situations.
manage it,
Right.
right?
Right. Got it.
But as parents, if we're so afraid and we just need it to stop, we're actually missing the opportunity to teach them to learn and help them
Got
learn.
it. Got it. Yeah. And I'm sure in this conversation, we're going to talk to the parent that says, but I'm just so exhausted. I got back from the day and I've been dealing with this all day and all
Yeah.
weekend. And I just wanted to stop,
Yeah.
so,
And so that we do a lot of work around parent self-care for that
mm,
reason, because if as parents, we got to take care of ourselves and know that, okay, here's the hot spots, right? Diane and I are doing a piece on parenting through the hot spots, this
mhm,
presentation we've been
mhm,
creating, because those transition moments are the hardest time of the day.
mhm.
And so we've got to make sure we're fueled as parents and ready to handle it, or that
Right.
we're able to tag out with a co-parent if
Hmm.
not, or we have to have our own strategies for managing staying calm in those moments where we're ready to pull our hair out, because they're going to happen.
Great.
That's real.
Yep. They're going to happen. You got to be ready for them. So,
Exactly.
okay. Well, you were going through a process. That was number one, right? And what is the another piece of advice that you'd have for parents? And
Well, I think I sort of touched on it, so I'll build on it. Is
mhm,
is don't start with the end, right? So
mhm,
I make fun. So we have a book called Parenting ADHD Now,
got it.
right? And
Mhm,
it's pulled from a lot of the resources. Our website's got a ton of content on it. And so we created this book called Parenting ADHD Now, and it's a book of strategies. And I kind of make fun of myself because it's exactly what I tell parents not to do, which is start with the strategies. So what's the first book? It's a book of strategies, because people think they want strategies.
right.
And sometimes we find that it helps to start with a few strategies to see that they work, and then you kind of go, okay, I trust you, give me a little bit more. So the
Right.
next book that's coming out is that next level. It's both strategies and concepts, right?
Hmm.
That'll be next summer, the essential guide to raising complex kids.
Yeah.
So what we want to do is try not to start with the solution, but to really take the time to understand the problem and to understand that. So one of the terms that we teach parents, one of the concepts is to ask ourselves the question, is it naughty or neurological?
Mm,
So, before you and I started, we were talking about how much this is brain based.
right.
And parents have a tendency, when they don't fully understand the dynamic, to see the behaviors that their kids are exhibiting as naughty,
Hmm.
when in fact what's happening is neurological. And so if we can shift our mindset and our thinking as a parent and ask us that
Hmm.
question, ourselves that question, it will actually shift how we interact with our kid based on the answer.
Got it. Well, there's your next book title,
Is
Naughty
it
or
naughty or
Neurological.
neurological? Yeah, it's given. Um,
For adults, for parents, right?
Right,
And
right. Well, it's all for parents. Like,
right.
parents are so amazed. You're
Hmm.
not going to talk to my kid? No, I'm not going to talk to your kid. I don't need to be in relationship with your kid.
Right.
You need to be in relationship with your kid.
Right.
I can help you do that really, really well, because
Hmm.
that relationship is what it's all about.
Right. And we found that I think 90% of the people that are in the toolbox and that are helping parents understand. I mean, we're not doing videos for kids. We're doing videos for
Right.
adults, and we're not training the kids, and we're not talking to the kids. Very few of even the doctors deal directly with the kids. They're
That's
dealing
right.
mostly with the adults. So this is
Right.
great.
That's back to that point of
Right.
performance.
But
That's
it's
where the
it's
change happens.
yeah,
Right.
but the training is it's for the parents, but for the parents to handle the kids, not for the parents to handle themselves. And you talked about self-care,
Oh yeah.
and maybe this is a good time to talk about that. What would be self-care things that parents probably
Could
should
do.
do on a regular basis that would, like when they get home, just take 15 minutes, or whatever. I don't know what your advice is, but I'd like to get that.
It'll depend on the parent, right?
Right,
And
right,
and here's what I want to say before I even go into that is that
right.
when Diane and I first started, one of the first things we started publishing was self-care tips. And
Hmm.
we actually stopped and changed the names because we found that parents, they know conceptually that they need self-care, but they see it as a luxury.
Right.
And so they don't want to talk about it or read about it, or because they don't think they have the time for that.
Yep, I
And
get that.
you know,
I think
and
everybody does that with themselves, even if you don't have kids, self-care is a luxury. I'll get a massage when I need to, when it's really like you
right,
really could use that
you really
physically.
need, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing I would say on that front
Hmm.
is you know, give it the credit it deserves.
Hmm.
We've had clients we've worked with. I have one in particular I was thinking about who went back to work, and so she was guilty that she went back to work, so she stopped exercising. And her kids finally came to her and said, "Could you please go to the gym? You're nicer when you go to the gym."
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So self-care is not really for us. Self-care gives us this capacity to calm down and stay calm and cool and collected
Hmm.
when everything else around you is on fire,
Right.
right? And you
Yeah.
need to be able to be calm. So one of the number one rules of parenting complex kids is get calm, stay calm, hold calm, whatever you need to do to calm down. Manage your triggers first. And self-care is essential for that. And so that may mean for some people it's knowing how much sleep you need. For some people, as you say, it may be taking 5 minutes in the driveway and decompressing and taking some breaths before you walk into the house at the end of a long day.
Hmm.
Or I mean, it will be different things for different people, and that's where coaching and support comes in to sort of figure out what it is for you. We do an exercise in Insanity School that's sort of know what feeds you. Like, take the time as a parent to figure out
Hmm.
what are the things that nourish you.
Hmm.
And for some people, it's, if you're an extrovert, it might be a girls' night out. And if you're an introvert, it may be, taking a bath once a week.
Hmm.
But whatever you need to do to stay calm and collected, that's a gift to your family. And it's an opportunity to model self-management and self-care for your kids, because these kids need to learn it. It won't come naturally. They need to see that part of being an adult is putting effort into taking care of yourself,
Hmm.
because that's how they're learning, and that's the scripts that they're playing. So if they see, oh, part of being a mom is I never take care of myself and I'm always stressed out and I feel
Hmm.
like I'm pulling my hair out, then that's what they're going to grow up to become as a
Hmm.
mom,
Right.
right?
And I also understand that they model that in the moment as well. I mean, I read some stats on that for parents that are unhappy or depressed or stressed, they wind up with kids that are mirroring
That's right.
behavior and that
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah.
So it's super important. If you want happy kids, you work on your own happiness
Find it.
first,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and our kids are sponges,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
Particularly a lot of kids with ADHD are what I would call emotional sponges, right? They
Hmm.
feel everything so intensely. Their highs are higher, their lows are lower, everything. It's like they're living a normal kid's life on steroids,
Right.
right? And so they feel our energy. We
Hmm.
talk a lot about, we do a whole exercise around what we call the tone of the home.
Hmm.
And how are you creating the tone in your home?
Right.
And as you say, that starts with, am I a screaming mimi mom? Or, am I the
Hmm.
one who might lose it and then comes back and calms down and says, hey, kid, I'm really sorry, you
Hmm.
know?
Hmm.
And that's huge, to be able to own that and be transparent around that. Something else that we teach is transparency. Um, we set the tone. We hear parents say a lot, I feel like my house has been hijacked by my kid, or I'm walking on eggshells all the time, or
Yeah.
and when that is happening, that means that we're really letting their their problems and their dysregulation create the tone in the home. And we can shift that, and it's surprisingly easy. I mean, it takes effort, but it's not that complicated. A lot of it has to do with setting the intention, and deciding and understanding what you want to create as a parent. and then beginning to slowly, incrementally make choices and changes that move in that direction.
Now, I know
That's,
your website's a wealth of information, right? And
yeah.
so let's say you had a parent. I mean, you have two different parents. One parent is like, they're the screaming Mimi type parent that you talked about, right? You know,
We
they're
call
the
her
ones,
Angry Ann,
yeah,
right?
they're the ones that are, they're more aggressive in the household. They set the tone, but it's through force. And then the other ones where they do the opposite, and the kids run
Yeah.
the household. They have the run of the house, and the kids are the vocal ones. And so those are two different situations, probably two different strategies on how to regain calm in the house. But I'm guessing on your website you probably have some places where they can go to find that information.
Yeah, so we actually have a quiz, a parent style quiz on the site.
Oh, you do? Okay,
And
awesome.
because we have these different, we call them the avatars. But so you've just
Hmm.
described Lost Lois and Angry Ann,
Okay,
right?
awesome.
So there are these
Is there
different
another one?
parenting paradigms. There's Fix It Fran,
Okay.
right? She's usually got a clipboard in her arms, right?
Okay.
There's, I'm blanking now. There's Maxed Out Maxine,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
Um, and the one that we all want is
Hmm.
Conscious Connie,
Okay.
right? Conscious Connie is the one that we all have some, and we all get her sometimes.
Hmm.
And the goal of the work that we do is to help parents connect more and more and more to that inner Conscious Connie or Carl. We're actually in the new book, we're expanding these. There are a bunch of avatars, both male and female. So we're really sort of fleshing this out a little bit because,
Got it.
Bootstraps Bill, he's the dad that it's got to be a certain way, and I
Yeah,
made it through and you can do it. Like, there are
I
some
love it.
typical parenting reactions that we tend to have, and they're
Right.
normal,
Right.
right? And
Right.
that's fine. And we want to begin to shift it to really meet the kid where they are
Right.
instead of forcing this kid to try to meet us where we are, because we're actually the adult in the situation.
Got it. Where do we find this information? Is it in your book? Is it on your website? Where do we go
It'll
to
be in
find
the
it?
new book, and on the website it's called the Parenting Styles Quiz.
The
And it's,
parenting. Okay. So we can search
yeah,
for it, find it on
yeah, it's easy to find.
impactadhd.com,
ImpactADHD.com.
and
Yeah,
you can search for what was that again?
Parenting Styles
The
Quiz,
parenting styles
or
quiz.
Parent
Okay.
Styles.
Great.
Yeah,
And then you can find out what parent style you are, and probably what
exactly.
approach you can take to calm your house down and
Yeah, or
regain
what kinds
control.
of supports we can use. And then the
Awesome.
other thing I'll say is, on that, as we're talking about the website, there
Hmm.
are it's a very robust blog. We've been running it for 9 years, so there are over 800 pieces of content on it, all
Wow.
original. And
Awesome.
one of our columns is a guest expert column. So many of the guests that you're having in this toolbox
Hmm.
have done pieces on the website. And then there's a blog and a tip, and there's video you can watch or read or listen. But there's 6 categories, so you can really go there and look and say, okay, I really deal with emotional management issues, or I deal with organizational issues, or we're
Hmm.
really having school problems. And
Right.
you can go into the area where you're really struggling and find resources that speak to that need.
That's fantastic. So it's
Cool.
the toolbox within the toolbox, if you will.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. Awesome. That's fantastic.
So here's what's jumping out at me now. So
Mhm.
one of the gift that we're going to give your people is about motivation.
Right.
So we talk a lot about motivation because it's really, really essential for parents of kids with ADHD in particular to
Hmm.
understand that our kids need a motivator to do anything, anything. Right? Like, we hear parents say all the time, my kid's not motivated, my kid how do I get them motivated? And the bottom line is, we can't get them motivated. We have to help them understand we have to figure out what kinds of things motivate them. We teach this a framework called Pinch, which I'll tell you about in a second. And then we have to help them begin to identify their own motivation, which is that, again, lifetime, long-term
Right.
skill set we want to give them. We talk a lot about take the marathon view here, right? Little steps are going to lead you to this long-term success you want with your kid. But understanding the role of motivation and how it plays in with executive function challenges is essential. You really can't help the kid understand themselves without understanding that they tend to be motivated. So our kids are stimulation seekers. I think I used this term earlier. They're constantly seeking input. The occupational therapist would call it, they want input, right?
Right. Right.
It may be sensory, it may be intellectual, but they need they're looking, they're craving stimulation. And so we have to figure out how to help them harness that in terms of motivation. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So they may be motivated, so pinch, they may be motivated by play or creativity, humor, that kind of thing. They are often motivated by interest, right? If you've heard yourself say,
Mm-hmm.
you know, my kid does great in classes that he likes and can't do the classes he does, that's a kid who's motivated by interest.
Mm-hmm.
They're often motivated by novelty. Those are the kids who do great at the beginning of the school year, new classes, new teachers, new materials,
Mm-hmm.
and then by October, they're like done, right?
Right.
Um, and then competition is a big motivator for some of our kids, but not all of them.
Right.
So you got to watch for that, because the kids with anxiety may be an anti-motivator. So and it's very highly used in the schools, right? Schools
Mm-hmm.
use competition a lot, and that's great for some of our kids, but not all of them. And then the last one we call hurry up, which is urgency. It's actually relying on a different part of the brain to get motivated. So the kids who wait to the last minute to get something done, or the adults who do that maybe, are doing that because they're actually waiting to the last minute, and then the amygdala kicks in. That's your primitive brain. And it says, oh, I only have 20 minutes, or I only have an hour, whatever it is. Now I got to go. And it's getting those hormones out that your brain needs to get something done. So you're not
Mm-hmm.
relying on that sluggish frontal lobe. You're actually kicking into gear. And it's a legitimate way to motivate yourself sometimes. The problem is that our kids, and truthfully, we as adults tend to rely on it as our only motivator.
Mm-hmm.
And that creates a stress cycle in the body,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we're
Mm-hmm.
constantly, because it's the sign that there's a saber-toothed tiger at the door,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
Oh my gosh, we're
Fight or flight.
late. Now we got to go, fight or flight.
Yep.
And that's okay, but if it's the only, it's a one-trick pony kind of
Right.
thing, right?
Right. Right.
And we want to teach our kids to use all motivators and not just that one.
Great. And
So
so you'll be giving away a free gift today around motivation, right? So
yeah,
what is that called?
it's called The Parent's Guide to Motivating Complex Kids, and
Okay.
it will build on, I think it includes pinch, but certainly will build on that to talk about a lot of different factors that you need to use or consider in helping kids find their motivation.
Got
So
it.
it's just
So
a shift in how we think about motivation.
got it. So there will be a link below this website here, or below this video,
Great.
that will have a link directly to the Parent's Guide to Motivating Your Complex Kid, and
Great.
you can get that directly right here on this website.
Super. Thank you
So
for offering
awesome.
that.
So if you're looking for tips, information about parenting as a parent, then you can go to ADHD Impact, or Impact
Oh,
ADHD,
Impact ADHD. Yeah.
impactadhd.com. You can see over 800 different blog posts. It is the ADHD toolbox on steroids, apparently. It's been around a long
I like
time.
that.
Yeah, and it is a great resource for you to get any questions you have answered. And Elaine, let's say a parent has a question for you, and they want to go a little deeper with some of the stuff you've talked about today. How do they get a hold of you? What's the best way?
So they can reach us on the website,
Okay,
and we do have a free weekly newsletter that if they sign up for it, it's a great resource because we publish 3 pieces of content every week:
got it.
one tip, one article, and one guest expert post.
Got it.
And so that comes in the newsletter every week.
Mm-hmm.
And then we do have a private Facebook group that's
Mm-hmm.
available to the public called the Impact ADHD Parent Community, so people
Got
can
it.
find us there.
Okay.
And what I mentioned earlier, so we teach a behavior management training program for
Okay.
parents called Sanity School,
All right.
and I firmly believe that if every parent of a complex kid would just do Sanity School, they would understand all this stuff. They'd understand what they need to know. And for a lot of parents, that's all they need, right? Is to just really get their head around it. Some parents will want more support, more coaching, more guidance, and that's available. We offer that as well, of course. But there's kind of some basic training, if you will, that I
Mm-hmm.
think every parent of a complex kid needs. And we created Sanity School to offer that, because we did it after we'd been working for about 4 or 5 years with parents and really got a sense of what were the most essential items that parents needed to understand, and how do we help them use this methodology in a way they can use it freely in their house every day to manage themselves and manage their kids. So that would be the other place I would really encourage people to look, is Sanity School for Parents. It's a pretty efficient way to get the training you really need.
Got it. And you can find that on your website, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, you've also got a book out, and you've got a new one coming up. What's your existing book, and how do we find that book?
The existing book is called Parenting ADHD Now, and you can find that on the website as well. And there's, and what I'll say on the website, there's, in the resources section, if you scroll all the way down on that page, there's a recommended reading carousel.
Okay.
And so, and it's divided by categories. And so there are a ton of great books and resources on that website. Ours is on there, of course. But everything that's on our website has been vetted. It's either we or parents in our community have said, this is useful, this is a good book, this is helpful. And so if you find something, any reference on our website, you can trust that other parents of complex kids have found it to be useful.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So we can, and they can buy your book. Is it also on Amazon?
Absolutely. Yeah. And you can get to it through the website or on Amazon directly.
Got it.
It's called Parenting ADHD Now, Easy Intervention Strategies for something.
And your new book, when does that come out?
Comes out in July of 2020, end of July. And we'll be doing a pre-sale sometime next spring.
Got it. And we'll find Fix It Fran and the whole gang there,
You'll
right?
find Fix It, the whole gang. Yeah.
All right. That sounds exciting. And that's so fun. I mean, it's a fun way to look at it. You find yourself, you identify with it just by the name, and you know who you are, right? And,
exactly. Well, I'll tell you, in Parenting ADHD Now, I talk about the 5 areas of ADHD that are impacted, right? Mm-hmm. Organization, emotionality, impulsivity, attention, etc. And I do it through, I describe them with well-known comic book characters.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
Right? Because that's, you know, when it's familiar, it's like, oh, I know who that is. I know what that is, right? So Jeremy from Zits is a classic, right? For those of you who know that cartoon. So that's, I like to use things that people can relate to.
Exactly. That's awesome. And very helpful, because, you know, just with the title, you can start to know who you are. And then I'm sure you go deeper in the book as to how you, what are some good parenting strategies for your personality type.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to that.
Thank you.
And if you are viewing this video, definitely go to the website, check out impactadhd.com. And if you need to have any questions, you can send Elaine an email directly on the contact page.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, this is awesome. We probably could have gone for 10 hours here with different content you have, but you've kind of given us kind of a real good taste of what you and your organization provide. I understand you're also on the board of directors at CHAD.
Not anymore. I used to be. Now I'm on the public policy committee.
Got it. So you've been around a long time, and you know this field pretty well. So thank you for your service, and thank you for being part of this community.
And thanks for doing this work. I think what you're doing is important, and I appreciate it.
Well, it's ADHD Awareness Month, and we are happy to to spread the word and help people become more aware of what's available. What ADHD is all about. Kind of get rid of the stigma about it a little bit. And really kind of highlight some of the what some people have called superpowers around it, and how do you unleash that and get past the behavioral learning challenges and get to the superpower part of it, and get rid of the stigma and understand that people like Einstein and Edison and some popular people like Adam Levine and Michael Phelps also struggle with these things. And I use these guys often, but there's plenty more out there that struggle with it, and that have been extremely successful, and it's because of their ADHD.
And it's a superpower because they learn to harness it, to manage it, right? And it can be devastating if you don't. Right. But when you understand it, you can manage it. You really can.
Yeah. Yep.
Or you can help your kids too.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being a part of the ADHD Toolbox. We appreciate you being on here, and thank you for watching this episode of the ADHD Toolbox. We'll see you on the next episode.